Hey y'all, it's Sarah. I've got a fun Christmas craft for us to do today. For anybody that might want to tag along and do this one. I've got several ideas that I'm going to try to throw in, and I'm just going to give you kind of the basics on putting these together. Super simple, but I kind of want to show you what I'm talking about. So let me slide this out of the way and show you guys a little bit of what I'm talking about. So these right here are probably about 2 foot to 26 inches. And that really is going to depend on how you add your stem, the length of your stem. You can see that I've done my stems as part of my piece. I've done my stem individual and separate kind of from my piece. And I'm going to show you a couple different varieties and some ideas on how to do each one of these. And this one I'm really looking forward to showing. I don't know if you guys can see that light up, but there we go. I'm really excited about that. I kind of like anything that's got lights or sparkles. So let's go ahead and jump into this. I'm going to be using a full sheet of foam core cut in half. This is cut in half the long way, so it equates to about 15 by 20. And if you don't know what foam core is, I'm using Readi-board brand. This is found all kinds of places, Dollar Tree, Dollar General, Walmart. It's in a 20 by 30 sheet, and it's normally less than $1. So I'm going to be using, to do 2 trees, it'll take you 6 wood painted strips. Now, I'm going to also bring in some of my wood, my 1-inch strips just to frame mine out. And you don't even have to do that. If you notice, this particular one does not have a frame around it. It does have kind of the letterboard ledges. And then my other one has a frame around it. But you could very easily just do one that has 0 frame around it. As you can see, the other thing I've got sitting here is my lighting, and I've got 2 options here. This was from Walmart last year. I got mine on clearance for less than $1 after Christmas, but this is what Dollar Tree has out this year. They're the same thing. If you look, they have kind of these longer little light nubs there that will work really nicely on fitting into our piece. Any type of lighting that you want to use, even if you just kind of wanted to twist around some fairy lights, that would probably work just as nicely. Any of those options, and you don't even have to light it up. You can use some of the Dollar Tree wood ornaments that they've got out right now, the do-it-yourself painted wood ornaments. You could use real wood ornaments. There are so many options with this little idea. So I want to go ahead and jump in and get started. Like I said, I had 1 full sheet that I have already cut in half. You can get 2 trees out of 1/2, and they're still going to be that size that I just showed you. One is going to be solid, one we're going to piece together, and you'll see that. So I'm going to pull this to the side. And let me grab my mat board, or my cutting board. And I'm going to show you how I measured this down. And honestly, you could just eyeball this and cut your triangle if you wanted to. A lot of times when I'm doing triangles, the easiest thing for me to do is just grab a couple of strips and kind of see how I want my triangle and then trace it from there. You guys know I'm not a big fan of math during crafts, but I don't mind measuring a few things out. So this is a 15-inch span. We're going to go half of that, which is 7.5. And we're just going to mark that. Now, in order to get our triangle, I'm going to pull my long ruler in here. And we are going to cut from one corner to that middle mark. If you can see that. when you're doing a large, long cut like this, and you're going to need a lot of pressure and that kind of thing, I really recommend putting some poster tack or poster putty on your straight edge. It helps keep it from sliding around on you. If you notice, the whole thing is sliding on me. My ruler is not going to slide out of place as much. So all we're going to do is cut from that center point here at the top down to this corner, kind of like when we're doing the mitering. Pop that off. We'll do the same thing on here, and I've already got one that's pre-cut just to speed things along for me. And you can see we're going from the very far corner up to this middle point once again. Simple enough. When you're cutting, try to be careful because we're actually going to be able to use this large triangle and these two smaller ones, and I'm going to show you that. Let me grab those. Whoops. I didn't mean to smack you guys. Okay, so this is what you end up with. Let me show you this. Here is where we cut. Ta-da! If you flip these around, where you've got your 90 degree here, your perfect 90 degree there. Spin that around, you've got your perfect 90 degree there. And now we have two of the large tree triangles. Now, we'll tell you, the reason that I'm showing you how to do two is this one will stay in place as we do horizontal slats. So this being two separate pieces, not a big deal. If you go across with horizontal slats, it is going to strengthen this up and you'll be good to go. However, the one I want to show you right now, I'm going to go up and down. It is the fastest route. The math works out wonderfully. It is the easiest way to go. And hopefully I'll have enough time to show you the horizontal too. So let's dive in. I really like these little trees. They're great companion pieces to the other pallet wood tree that I've posted already. And I'll be sure to try to remember to link that in. My memory's not what it used to be, but I'll definitely try to remember to link that in because they are cute together. So the first thing I'm going to do is I only need 3 strips to finish out this tree. And my strips, unless I say otherwise, my strips are pretty much always at 3 inches. If I'm doing something that requires a little different size, I usually will tell you guys, but just in case I don't mention it every now and then, mine are always 3 inches, and this is kind of why. It worked out with my ruler. So what we're going to do here is take, right on the bottom, we're going to mark the 7.5 that we did already, because that's half of our little triangle piece. I feel like that might have been a little short, like I cut it short, but I'm good. And this part is not even necessary if you're good at eyeballing these things. I just kind of like to know where to start my center strip. So I'm just going to pick a strip that's going to go down my middle portion. I'm also going to kind of determine how long I want my stem at this point, or my tree trunk. And you can kind of personalize that. Start it off at 2 inches. If you're going to do multiples, do one at 2 inches, one at 4 inches, something like that. And you can stagger your heights. There's a couple things that I did want to point out on doing this. As I'm gluing it together, let me pull my little glue gun station over here. One of the things that I wanted to point out is most of the time you guys likely see me glue on my strips. And I just find that easier. I can cover the whole thing, pop it in place. On this one, because I'm going to have to trim this out anyway, no matter which way I go, I don't want a lot of glue overage, because for me it's really hard to cut through the hardened hot glue. So just keep that in mind. You'll see me kind of work this on here a little weird, because I'm going backwards on that, or I'm actually going to put my glue on the triangle. So here we go. I'm just going to come in right here at this center area, and I'm kind of eyeballing it at roughly what I think 3 inches looks like down that center. And now you can see why I'm doing that. That way, when I get to this point over here, when I'm trimming right here and right here, I really don't want to have to cut through a whole bunch of glue. Okay, so we've got that one in place. We're going to do the same thing to these 2 other strips. I have been asked this week if I glue all the way on a piece or if I just spot glue it. And you can see I glue all the way. And there's a couple reasons why. If you've already played with this, you know, the more they move around, the more they kind of slide around, you can risk causing that surface paper to peel. So I want good adhesion, so none of my pieces are moving around as I lift my piece or shift it around. But the other thing is that when you have gaps, especially along an edge like this, if you have gaps, it's going to be a little more noticeable. You're going to have some of the white show through. If you've already played with the foam core material, you know that when it's manufactured, some of the sheets come out with this ripple across that foam. So you want to seal it really good along your edges so that it adheres down nice and flat and you don't notice any of that, if that kind of makes sense. And you can see here that I left the one stem long, but these others, I am flushing right against the bottom of my little triangle. And I know it looks kind of ridiculous because we've got all this extra. And we're about to solve that. So I'm going to come in with my blade. And I kind of really like these finger guards now when using my blades. They give me way more confidence in holding that blade securely. And I want to show you a quick trick when you're trying to trim up against areas like this. Take your blade, push right up against this edge, and slide your straight edge up against there. And you're going to have a really nice flush cut. And you can see now why I didn't glue everywhere, because if the glue had dried here, and I've got just a little bit there, and you'll probably see me struggle to pull through it with my blade. I was trying to avoid having to cut through any of the hot glue part. So I'm going to slide this up just a little bit to try to get a start, because we're cutting in a weird spot right here in this middle section. And I can still feel where I've got hot glue right there at my end. Then I'm going to be trying to drag through there just a little. It's not that hard. It's just, if I can avoid it, I'm gonna. And these scrap pieces, we're going to use. Like I said, this particular one works out fairly nicely mathematically. There's not a lot of waste on this, which I like. And you can kind of see me have to work that through because I did get a little messy with the glue. And it's not that big of a deal. You can see I still managed, but to save myself some headache, I do try. Now you can see I've got a really nice flush cut to that. Okay, so here's where I was saying that this one works out pretty nice mathematically. Now we've got these two sides where it kind of looked like I was forgetting the rest of my tree. I didn't do anything else to these. I'm just going to bring this over and pop that right there. And look, it's a perfect cut to fit that side. So I'm going to come in, really glue this edge, especially with it being kind of on this angle. I'm going to slide my piece right up against there. Flush it up to this side with my fingers. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Right now, it kind of looks like we've got a rocket going on. And this side is going to fit nicely in place too. Very nice. Slide that up just a hair. Okay, so all we have to do now is the same thing we did to get these pieces. We're just going to come in, flush our ruler up against here, and we'll have a nice straight bottom also. Don't accidentally cut your stem off. We need that. There we go. So these little scraps, I never toss my scraps, and here's why. I'm going to actually use this one. Now for me, I can show you really quick. I finish the backs of my pieces. I tend to do front and backs of most things. This is a good stage for you to come in and go ahead and do this back. If you notice, this is my kind of funky back side, and this is my painted side. I'm going to do my painted side this way, so then I don't even have to paint that section if I go to finish out my back. I'm just doing this portion to sturdy up my stem, give it a little thickness. That way, it's not going to kind of bend on me if I rest these, like on my fireplace or something like that, rather than hanging them. This one actually turns out really nice going with the shorter stem. I have enough scrap from just this piece that I will be able to go kind of 3 layers thick here. I can turn around and do this, and it's going to give me even a little more security and thickness. And I'm just going to go ahead and trim this down so that it makes it easier for me to glue. And all of these raw edges that you have trimmed, don't forget that at the end, we'll go back in and touch those with paint. And get all those edges nice and blended in. You could have really used one of these pieces to go up this back side and strengthen it up a lot also. If you're going to do heavy decorations on it, I would definitely strengthen up your stem a little bit. I'm not going to go heavy on this. I am going to be showing you how to do your lights with this one. So I'm just going to put my little scraps to the side. You guys know that I love using scraps for things. I think scraps tend to bring me more imagination than anything else. So I am grabbing some of my little 1-inch strips. And guys, this is what I typically use for framing, and I keep some of these around. And I'm going to tell you a little secret on this. If you find it hard to get a nice paint job, and if I didn't mention, all of the paint finishes are their own tutorial. That way you can customize to every single craft. I am kind of a little bit of a talker, so it's hard for me to get the paint tutorials and the craft tutorials together. So that allows me, 1, to do those separately and give you more details, and 2, it really lets you customize what you're going to be working on. That way you can do it to match your decor, match a certain something. So I'm just going to come in. I want to frame mine out. So I want to make sure that I've got my frame pieces lined up here. And to frame this out, all I did was figure out where I wanted my frame and then mark it with my pencil. I'm not going to do that yet because I really want to show you how to get the lighting in here without having the issues that I ran into initially. So I'm just going to do it on the really simple version. I can go back in and add my frame after this. But this is the part that I felt was really important to kind of show you guys. I personally tried this multiple times. I've got multiple trees. I did multiple test runs on this, and I encountered a couple problems trying to get my holes through here with the lights. Now, one thing I want to tell you, your biggest risk, if you come in from the back, one of your biggest risks is kind of blowing out this paper on the top. And let me see. I threw my scraps away already. I was going to show you what I meant, but it'll kind of rip your paper from the top. Think Sigourney Weaver and Aliens. It does that kind of to your nice painted paper surface. So, in order to prevent that, I tried a lot of things. I used screwdrivers. I used an ice pick, and I'm going to tell you this is what I found that gave me the best result. So, this right here is one of the shorter, kind of thick skewer wood sticks. It's a little thinner than a pencil, but I want you to see. These are a really good size representation to the light bulbs that we're using. And the best way to do this that I have found. Now, first thing you want to do, and I want to show you this, you can cover this entire thing from top to bottom. There's enough lights. Now, if you really wanted this thing lit up, use a longer strand. You can use double strands, whichever you prefer. I went very simple on mine because it's already a rustic look. So I thought the single strand of lights was still enough to light it up nicely, but that's a personal preference. So you can see that this is just their normal strand. This is their 10 light strand. It doesn't have the measurements, doesn't have the length on it like my one from Walmart does. My 20 light one from Walmart says that it's 7 feet. And that's with 20 of these lights. This one has 10, so I imagine that this is half of that, or close to it. My first suggestion is go ahead and string them out and determine where you want them, because you're only able to stretch them so far, and you need a little of that length to be able to go down into that. So be sure to kind of gauge where you want your lights to begin with, and you want your battery pack to end up down here at the bottom. So keep that in mind. And I'm just going to show you this process because I really kind of am hoping that I can get into the horizontal tree also. So let's assume that I went in and I marked kind of where I wanted my first light to start. And since I'm going to have a frame on there, I have to keep in mind that I don't want to go any further over than that. Same on this side. So let's say that I have mine marked and I used this side. And like I said, I don't want to use this and go straight through on here. All I'm going to do is push that in, and I'm twisting just a little bit on this side. I've got my finger literally on the other side. It is barely marked into that. Now, had I kept pushing, you can see it's already raised that little bit of paper right there. If y'all can see that. If I had kept pushing, it's going to bust that through. So, what I did with mine, and this step is not necessary, but I did it for extra precaution and just a much cleaner look. So, I've got my art glitter glue. I love this stuff. It's fast drying. It doesn't warp the paper like a lot of other liquid glues could do. And it's got a very good applicator on it. I happen to have this around because I'm a paper crafter, and we tend to want to use adhesives that dry really quickly so that our paper doesn't warp. So with all that said, what I ended up doing is I'm going to come here right where I've got that little spot marked out, and I want to twist all the way. This whole way, I want to twist. And kind of what that is doing is your little bit of paper surface that would normally be busted through is kind of getting worked down into the edge of that. And I'm going to keep pushing through and spinning. And I'm going to go all the way through and kind of pull this through like a sewing needle so that it keeps that paper pulling down. Now, here is one of the things that I ended up doing, and you don't have to do, because you can see that made a very, very nice clean hole, and it pushed all of our painted paper down into the hole. And some of that's going to get pushed back up when we bring our lights back up through. So in order to prevent that from happening, keeping my clean line, I went in and put a little glue just inside those edges. And like I said, this was an extra unnecessary step. It does hold pretty decent if you just do all the way up to that point like I showed. But just for extra security, you can see I just put barely a little in there. I'm going to push that down through. It's going to push against those same sides. I'm spinning it and pulling it out. And it's just going to harden those little pieces of paper that kind of hit that edge right there. It's going to keep them stuck down in there so that I don't push them back through when I push my light bulbs through. And to show you how to do that, on mine, I did that with all of my holes, and then I gave it a little bit of time to dry and harden, and I come back in and put my lights. But for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and show you. So we're going to come back through here. We are just going to kind of slide this bulb in there, and it's a really nice, snug fit. You don't even have to glue these in. It is a pretty snug fit. And you can see, you can honestly go in and have that flush. And it'll stay. And I want you to see, oh, I did not put batteries in this one, guys. Let me grab my other one that actually has the batteries in it. I have kids. So batteries are kind of a privilege to get your hands on around here. Not gonna lie to you, so I'm gonna go back to my finished example to show you. And I've kind of pushed some down here so you can see. Now, you can very easily pop your lights all the way out, and that's fine. You can pop them flush, which I kind of like. And you'll see this come up in a couple other crafts really soon. And if you notice, I forgot to paint mine before I put my lighting in. Next time, I'll remember to paint it first, then put my lighting in. But you can see this one is completely flush. It still gives a nice glow. These are battery operated LEDs. They are not really going to be a fire hazard with this. You know, it is paper. These are lights, but with them being battery operated, I have not felt that they've gotten too hot that I would be concerned. And you can see how nice that looks when it's bumped flush. You can see it works really nice even if you pop it through a little further. So either which way that you want to do that works nicely. So the other thing that I wanted to mention, and that was my tree dropping, guys. The other thing I wanted to mention is look at your battery pack. Now, you could easily not even attach your battery pack, just kind of set it behind your piece and not really sweat it at all. However, I wanted to attach my battery pack, and I wanted to kind of give you a heads up at what to look at when you go to attach your battery pack. Firstly, you want to put it kind of low on your piece, somewhere on your trunk or your stem, because if you mount it up here, it's going to make this a little top heavy, and it might want to tilt on you. It might want to fall over on you. So going down here kind of weights the bottom and balances that weight. Secondly, pay attention to, one, where your hinges are on your battery pack. And Dollar Trees, they usually have this screw in back. So you want your screw access and your hinges to be close to the front. That way you can replace your batteries if necessary. To attach this, you can hot glue it. You can use, Dollar Tree has the double-sided tapes and adhesives. You can command strip it, whatever way that you want to attach that works for you, that you have on hand. I just hot glued mine. I could have used any method really, but when you do, just make sure you're gluing this side and not your side that gives you your battery access. That way later on you can change out your batteries when you need to. Normally when I do things like this in the paper world, I usually build a little box and put them in. But with this one, I kind of didn't. I glued mine all the way kind of flush to this bottom so that when I stood it up, that gave me an extra little bit of stability on my stand. So, there we go with that information. I know I'm kind of cutting it close with time. I kind of try to watch my timer. So those were some little tips. You're going to see me do some more lighted ones before too long, just because I like lights. They shine, they sparkle, they make me happy. It's just something that I enjoy doing. Anything that I make, you certainly don't have to light it up. You could do this project without lighting it up too. Okay, really quick, let me try to blabber my way through this other tree. I'm just going to line these up just like that. I've got some of my Dollar Tree masking tape, and guys, this roll that has these cute little teal kind of aqua stripes, I'm gonna tell you, there is a boatload of tape on this roll. No lie. For $1, you can't beat it. And we're not gonna see this once we get everything applied down. I'm just doing this so that it doesn't slip and slide on me while I'm applying things down. And we'll be able to glue right over this. Tore it a little long, so I'm going to remove that part. Same thing on this one. We're going to add some pieces, trim down, and then recycle the rest of those scraps up at the top. So when I lay them down, I'm right dominant, so I tend to put things to the right, whichever way is comfortable, but it does make it easier if you kind of come all the way as close to the edge on one side. You're still going to have to trim it, but that gives us a lot larger scrap piece on this side. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to glue to this surface so that I'm not having a lot of hot glue to cut through when I trim this down by size. Now notice we do not have a trunk on this one. I'm going to show you how to add one with our scraps. Hopefully. Let's try to work this fast where I don't run out of time. Same thing here. I'm going to slide this over as far as I can slide it. I'm going to flip that up so I know where I'm putting my glue. And I'm going to pop this little guy right back down in place. Save me a little time. This is the scrap left from the other one. I'm going to pop it right there. Actually, let me just go ahead and trim these down. That way you can see why I did it this way. This one kind of works out pretty mathematically decent too, so we don't have a lot of leftover. I've only got a little bit of glue overage right here to cut through, so it shouldn't be too bad. I'm just going to do this side. I'll trim the other side at the very end when I'm done. I'm just trimming the side that I can get the pieces off of. There we go. 2 nice cut pieces. Now, one thing I want to show you is if you get your pieces cut just right, you can turn around and do this right here. Ta-da! That saves you a little time and effort. Now you see why I said there's the one side I was just going to do later. Because you can kind of make your pieces work for you instead. Same thing here. Assuming that you cut really nicely down that straight edge, you're going to get a nice cut that'll allow you to just come back in like this and slide them in place. And the same thing will happen when we trim these down to do these portions up here. We should have nice cuts that will allow us to do the very same thing. And we're really going to get the most out of this entire piece. So I'm going to try to get these all nice and flush. Start up here because I know I've got some hot glue I've got to bite into. This would have been easier if I'd have put my little finger guards on. Like I said, I feel like I have better control with those. Y'all try not to judge my cuts at the moment. I don't have my glasses on. I am kind of winging this. Here we go. Same thing. Now we've got our edge cut for that side. And there. So it's kind of just a rotation of doing the same thing up and down this one. And I like that it works out the way that it does. No fuss, no muss. If your cuts aren't super great, you can see that mine right there was not where I hit the hot glue. you can just come back in and trim that a little. But if you're going to frame it out, it does not even necessarily have to be trimmed if you only have just a little tiny variance like that. Now, there's one of two things. You can continue out the same pattern up through that top piece. You can hide it with your framing. I like to finish it out because if not, from the side, I'm going to have that little gap. You could get away with it once you frame this out and had frame pieces come up to here. You're not even going to see that, but you would see a little space there. So for me, it's worth it to go ahead and come in and do the little extra step and add that little piece. And you know what? Let me just see if this will work. It would, but it makes my grain go kind of funny, so I'm not going to use that little scrap. So you can see what I did here. This one's going to need to dry a little longer before I go and trim that down. Otherwise, it's going to shift on me while I'm trimming it, and I really want to clean cut on my very tip there. But while that's drying, we can go ahead and start playing with the idea of a stem. So here's where one of these long sections comes in handy. One, it's going to help secure where we have this divider line here. Now, this is the point where I would tell you, because I'm doing a video, I'm not going to stop and do it. But this is the point where I would tell you, stop, go ahead, finish out your back if you're going to finish those out. Not everybody wants to take the time to do that because nobody's looking at the back of their stuff. And that's really fine too. To be honest, nobody should be flipping your decorations around looking at the back. If they do, have a talk with them. Tell them don't do that. So I'm just going to come in, pop this in the back. I'm keeping my stem rather short. Pop that over. We're kind of doing the same thing. Right now, as soon as I add this, we're going to be at the 2-layer thickness. When we're done, it's going to be the 3-layer. And I'm going to come in and put my glue here. Now, remember, if you're going up against your foam edges like this, that if your glue gun is set on a very hot setting, it can melt your foam on those edges. My glue gun, fortunately, has setting variables where I can change mine around. So keep that in mind, that it will shrink that foam. It'll melt it, essentially. We're just going to keep trimming and going and trimming and going and using these same pieces over and over. So I didn't give a whole lot of measurements right at the beginning, and you can kind of see how that plays out now. Now you can see this right here is already really stable enough, and that's only at a 2-layer thickness. I can come in, look, there is just enough room where I can come in and add that 3rd thickness right there. I'm not going to, well, I could. I really didn't want to glue it down because I do not have my paint handy to go ahead and paint this edge, but I can go ahead and trim it to put down there. Because on that particular one, right there where it bumps up against that, it's possible that you could see a little bit of that white on your tree trunk. It's not very likely if you turn around and frame this one. But you can kind of see what I mean. When you have those white edges, there's a possibility from that angle you can see that white. I would want to go ahead and paint that before gluing that down, so I'm going to hold off on putting that together. I'm going to come back in here now, and I'm able to trim this top part. It's had enough time to harden. I'm not going to end up wiggling it around. Okie dokie. There we are to this point. And now the only thing is to come in and frame. And I'm going to show you a really easy, cheesy way to do this without doing a whole lot of math or trying to get the 45s. I know the 45s still can be a pain to some people. I just watched somebody struggle the other day not being able to get their 45s to line up. So we're not going to use any kind of math on this. We're just going to cut it to fit. So all I've done is adhere that down. Now you'll see this side, I'll have to come in and paint all of that up so that everything looks nice and clean and like real wood from the side. Those are always what I like to call my quality control things. When I go back in, I finish out all those pieces, I get the nice edges, I take a paintbrush and kind of touch up any white spots that my sponge didn't get to. Here we go. So all I've done, you can see, I went straight up the side. I cut off the overhang here. Now, this is why I said we weren't even going to do any math. We were just going to kind of take the easy crafter's way out on this. Line it up over that piece once it's adhered down. Take your pencil, come in, mark the top of where this angle is. And right here with this angle, if you're having a hard time seeing that, doing that, aligning that, just take your ruler, bump it up against this one. You should be able to just make sure your edges are lined up so that your angle is right. You should be able to just slide your little pencil down. Kind of get an eye for that angle. I know I keep spinning mine back and forth. It's just because I'm right-handed and I can cut it better this way. You're going to want to, I'm not going to glue this down. This goes back to wanting to make sure that I paint my edges. So there you go. It's going to slide right into place right there. If you can see, I want to be able to paint that right there before I glue that down. And then when you come down here, you do the very same thing I just showed you. Take your ruler, your straight edge. Once each piece is glued down, bump it up against that piece. Use it to sketch your line. And you're good to go. So that's how you would frame that out. You can see really how nice that frame sets that off. And you've got some really fun trees. You can go as large as you want. The other video that I did is a much larger pallet wood looking Christmas tree. It runs in just under, somewhere between 4 and 5 feet. These run a little over 2 feet. Something like that. Well, this one's got a shorter stem, so just under 2 foot for this one. But you can get approximately a 2-foot tree. Lots of options. A couple other things that I want to say. Go in, try a monogram. Put some of these together. Let your kids decorate them and customize them if you have kids that are still doing Christmas crafts. That one's a really fun idea to me. You could do one for each child. Let them decorate it. Pop it on your fireplace above where their stocking hangs. Have it really personalized. You can go on a smaller scale. Do these as ornaments. Do them as garland. I just finished a garland. I'll be sharing it soon. I hope that gives you some ideas. I have a whole bunch more ideas, but I have tried to do this video twice. And I was so full of ideas and so full of try this, try this, try this, that the videos got even longer than what my long-winded videos tend to be. So I tried to figure out which ideas I wanted to narrow down the most. This is where I stand. Same thing. I do want to point out really quick though. On the letterboard one, I really love my letterboard one, and I'm going to tell you, you're liable to ask where I got those letters. Those things, they're scrapbook ones. They are actually fabric. This one here, those are actually fabric pieces. These letters are probably, I don't know, some of you scrapbookers can remind me. I'm usually pretty good at this, but these are probably about 12 years old. And I don't remember who makes them anymore. I want to say that those actually were early Paper Studio maybe. But to do that, all I did was take my wood strips and space them out evenly. And to do that, all I did was get started down here. I figured out where I wanted it. Popped my ruler there. Glued one down, trimmed it. Glued the next one down, trimmed it. And worked my way up just like that. If you can't find letters like this, and I've seen people asking about this, make your own, guys. And it's really simple. Cut some cardstock, whatever size you want. Grab some letter stickers. I've got more letter stickers than I should ever admit to. Pick a font that you really like. If you're a Cricut user, you can do it that way too. If you're a Silhouette, any of the machines, you can do it that way too. Stickers work fine. Dollar Tree stickers work fine. Alphabet stickers from your kid's stash work fine. little bit of cardstock, cut it out to size where it's got a nice little letterboard frame around it, and there you go. You're good to go. I just wanted to use those that I had. Obviously, I've had them a long time. They needed to get used out of my stash. You can see here, this is one of the Dollar Tree Crafter Square wood cutouts. I've got carpet tacks to look like little nails, all kinds of ideas. Grab something and roll with it. It's such an easy thing. You can get 4 trees out of, or 4 tree bases and backgrounds out of one full sheet. You got a lot of ideas to be able to play with there. So I hope that gives you a little something to roll with and think about and play with. And I'm going to finish these up and get to decorating them. Hope to talk to you guys soon, and I hope you get to crafting. Bye, y'all.